the monthly meeting of the board. All right, I'm going to call the November 22nd, 2021 regular monthly meeting to order of the library's board. Angie, can we have a call to roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Biederman.
Present.
Mr. Bigsby.
Present.
Dr. Murtada.
Present.
Ms. Payne.
Present.
Reverend Robinson.
Present.
Salinas.
Present.
And Ms. Tribble. Present. We do have a quorum.
We do have a quorum, and we are still under the governor's order. So all members and their votes, even virtual, are good. We're going to move on to number 3, the public comment and communication section. At every library board meeting, we open with the time for public comment. We welcome feedback from the public about our Indianapolis libraries, and at this time, the public can come to address the library board. If there are several of you representing the same group, please select a spokesperson. Please do not repeat the same comments someone else has offered. Please also note that this is a public comment time, is not the appropriate forum for commenting on matters related to alleged employee misconduct. Any such matters should be brought promptly to the attention of the library interim CEO or the Human Resources Department, where matters can be properly addressed in compliance with established library policies and procedures. A 5-minute time limit will be allowed for each speaker. Each speaker should give their name and their address. Do we have some? Did anybody sign up? Okay. Do we have any letters?
Yes, yes, we do.
Yes. No names or anything.
I'm
no.
sorry.
Make sure we don't read any names or personal information.
Yes.
All right,
yes.
Go ahead.
This is actually from a patron.
Well, from a patron is fine, but they're who they are, but not in the body.
Thomas Scott. He said, I would like to see the library revisit their mask requirement. In visiting multiple branches throughout the system over the past few months, I have seen that the mask requirement only serves to place library employees in the situation of being mask police. It seems that some branches and employees have decided that being mask police is not in their job description, while other employees and branches spend their entire time on a hunt for a mask that may have drooped below the nose a few centimeters. I have personally observed staff watching unmasked patrons enter and move about the building without a care. On the other end of the spectrum, I have witnessed staff yelling at patrons from across the room to put on a mask, calling security and even police on patrons not wearing a mask. As the vast majority of businesses in Marion County have moved to a simple recommendation, even those venues where individuals are in much closer proximity to each other, like Lucas Oil Stadium. And I would ask that the library move to join these entities by removing the mask requirement for individuals at the library. Thank you.
John, we follow the CDC guidelines, correct?
That's correct. We're following the CDC guidelines for mask use, which recommends that individuals, regardless of vaccinated status, wear masks in areas of high or substantial community spread, which Marion County still is. I can ask Greg Hill, our Chief Public Services Officer, to look into the consistency of the application of the rule, but we are not going to be walking away from the mask requirements.
Okay, thank you. Angie, do we have any other letters?
No, sir, that was the only one.
Thank you. We'll move on to approval of the minutes of the executive regular and special meeting. This will be the regular meeting, October 25th, 2021. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the regular October meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion or amendments or edits to the minutes of the October meeting? Seeing none, Angie, can we have a call to roll, please?
Mr. Biederman.
Approve.
Bixby.
Approve.
Dr. Murtada.
Approve.
Ms. Payne.
Approve.
Reverend Robinson.
Approve.
Salinas.
Approved.
And Ms. Tribble.
Approved.
Okay, we'll move on to committee reports. The Finance Committee, Dr. Payne.
Carolyn, are
Hi.
you there?
I am. Hi.
Great.
If you can tell us what page you'll be starting on.
page 19
Thank
is
you.
the beginning of the treasurer's report.
Thank you.
This is the report for October 2021. Just wanted to draw your attention to our annual budget remains at 46 million for revenues. Our actual year-to-date is 28.8 million, so we're 63% of our budget, which is in line where we usually are since we get a large influx of property taxes in December. Our expenditures, these are on page 20. Our expenditures actual year-to-date are 34,491,000, which is 67% of our budget. And that's going to be on target for the end of the year. One thing to note, we did sell the property, our Old Eagle branch on Lowry Road, and the net proceeds from that was 187,000. So that showed up in October, and that was not planned originally. Page 21 is the charts, which show we're pretty much in line with previous years historically. So no anomalies at this point. And that was all I had to report on the October treasurer's report. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the board? All right, is there a motion to accept the report of the treasurers for October 2021 for filing for audit?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
any further discussion? Seeing none, Angie, can we have a call to the roll, please?
Mr. Biederman,
Approve.
Mr. Bixby,
Approved.
Dr. Matada,
Approve.
Ms. Payne,
Approve.
Reverend Robinson,
Approved.
Judge Salinas,
Approved.
Ms. Tribble. Approved. Thank you.
Item B, resolution 59.
This is the resolution. Sorry, this is establishing the American Rescue Plan Act Grant Fund. In September 2021, the library was notified it would receive a sub-grant dispersed from the Indiana State Library as part of the American Rescue Plan Act, which those are federal funds. We do not normally get a lot of federal funds during the years. As a requirement, we had to set up a special grant fund for this for the State Board of Accounts. So this resolution is asking for the authorization to adopt a resolution to set up a special grant fund called the ARP Fund for State Board of Accounts requirements and federal requirements. Are there any questions about that?
Are we still gonna manage it? Like,
We still manage it. It's just a separate fund is required for this federal sub-grant money.
and remind me again the amount of the grant?
This is $26,050.
Any other questions from the board members?
I have one question. What would the projected grant be used for?
This one is for technology services, Chromebooks, and video conferencing, so we can do more programming via Zoom. Any other questions?
Board, any questions from the board? Is there a motion to approve resolution 59?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on resolution 59, board? Angie, can we have the call to roll, please?
Approve.
Mr. Bixby,
Approved.
Dr. Matada,
Approve.
Ms. Payne. Oh, we'll come back. Reverend Robinson,
Approved.
Judge Salinas,
Approved.
Ms. Tribble. Approved. It
Is
is
the-
approved. It appears Ms. Payne has stepped away for a moment.
Okay. We didn't count her vote, did we?
No, we did not.
Okay, all right, but the motion still carries,
Yes.
and we'll come back to her to see how she voted on this. We'll go to resolution 60.
Resolution 5C, which is 60-2021. While we just approved the establishment of the grant fund, this is appropriating the $26,050, which is required by the State Board of Accounts. So these funds, as it says, will be used to reimburse the library for expenses incurred to update and expand its Chromebook lending program and video conferencing solutions. And these purchases will allow the library to provide greater access and connectivity to its patrons and staff. And the amount is $26,050 and it's broken down by the amounts listed on page 41 is the categories. Are there any questions?
Just a comment. I think the Chromebook lending library is so useful to increase the opportunities for more people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the board? Is there a motion to approve resolution 60?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on resolution 60, board? Hearing none. Angie, can we have a call to roll, please?
Mr. Biederman,
Approved.
Mr. Bigsby,
Approved.
Dr. Machado.
Approved.
Here's Ms. Payne is still away. Reverend Robinson,
Approved.
Judge Salinas,
Approved.
and Ms. Tribble. Approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to have to leave the call.
Okay.
Okay.
It must be a family emergency. I hope
That's
all
okay.
is well.
Hope she's okay. We still have a quorum, right?
Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
All right, we still maintain a quorum. Let's move on to item 6, Diversity Policy Human Resource Committee. Hope.
Thank you, Mr. President. I reported last month that the climate improvement process had begun, and it is underway and being administered by Ice Miller. I have asked Myra Selby if she would give a brief report to the board about the progress on that. And then after that, we'll hear from our interim HR director.
Okay.
Thank you, Hope. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm sorry that my camera is kind of acting up, so it's not great. Thank you, board members, for this opportunity to give you an update on our racial equity solutions work on the climate study for the library. The work is moving along. We've had cooperation across the board, both in our document request fulfillment, as well as the step that we're working on now, which is the formation of the team of employees, the team of people who they begin as an internal team, helping to inform us in the climate study. And then they will hopefully build capacity during this period to then become a lead team going forward on the library's racial equity work after our report is submitted and the racial equity work continues thereafter. The name of the team, the team has been referred to as the GO team, and that's the name that they've now voted to keep, and they're self-describing themselves. That team consists of a total of 16 individuals. They are from across branches. We have branch representation in small size, largest size, central branch. We also have representation across departments. We have, of course, union representation in the group, as well as 2 seats for community stakeholders, and that includes CICF and Wheeler Mission, and we also have a representative from the Library Foundation. We've had 2 meetings with this group. Both meetings have been extremely productive. They are very enthusiastic about helping us to understand what they view as the challenges from a racial equity perspective. And so the first couple of meetings have been to really clarify the purpose, scope, and roles of the GO team. We're now into the process during which they're informing our process, which our next step will be an employee survey that will go to each and every employee of the library to ascertain questions of race, climate, and just where employees feel they are at along those lines at this particular time. So because advancing racial equity becomes a responsibility of all team members, this is a building process, and this team seems to be very, I think, engaged and excited about starting on that journey. In terms of our work plan, we have lost about a week or so in our timeline, just because it took a while to form the team and actually get the first meeting on the books. We think we'll be able to make that time up, and that we will be on target for presenting the deliverable, which is our written report to you, the board, early in 2022.
Thank you, Justice Selby.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Any
Okay.
questions?
Any questions from the board? Seeing none, thank you, Justice Shelby. I do appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for allowing us to do this important work.
Thanks again for your work, and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
And now I'll call on our interim HR director, Tisha Galarse, for presentation of 2 resolutions.
All right, so the first resolution is 6A. It's the approval of resolution 61-2021, adopting a schedule for pay grade, staff positions, and benefits. On the benefits, it will stay and remains the same as 2021. The biggest changes for the pay grade is we are increasing the minimum of pay grade 3 and pay grade 4, which an impact of $114,000. And then we are moving all pages to pay grade 3 with a minimum of $1,250. This is an increase of 25% from their current pay, and it will be an impact of $156,000. All of these amounts have been budgeted for 2022.
Are there any questions from the board? I believe you sent out a list of all the names for people that were affected by this, correct?
That's the next
the
one,
next
yeah.
one. That's
Yeah,
the
the
title-
title,
the title's
yeah.
good. All right, is there any questions from the board on this? I'm assuming you're asking for approval, right? Hope?
Yes.
So is there a motion to approve resolution 61? Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on resolution 51 from the board? Seeing 61, yes. Seeing none, Angie, can we have a call the roll, please?
Mr. Biederman,
Approve.
Mr. Bixby,
Approve.
Dr. Murtada,
Approve.
Reverend Robinson,
Approve.
Judge Salinas,
Approved.
and Ms. Tribble.
Approved.
Thank you.
We'll move on to resolution 62.
All right, resolution 62 is for the approval of an additional payment for the 2 employees for end of the year. This is going to break down by hourlies and pages receiving $300, for part-time receiving $500, and for full-time receiving $1,000 at the end of the year. The payment will be on December 10th on their paycheck, or an extra paycheck on December 10th. This is for accumulated from a surplus from personal services and other benefits funds that we had. The total amount, it is approximately $516,000.
Just a quick question. When you said from other funds that we have, that's, could you say a little bit more about that? And in what way was the union consulted and discussed about these possibilities?
We didn't discuss the union on this one because we didn't know if we were gonna be able to afford it until the last minute. But the funds were for positions that we have open and then benefits.
Yeah.
You were saying about the origin of the fund.
Yeah, so it's from salary, from surplus of salaries that we haven't filled the positions.
So for
So it's
example,
underspending, correct?
yeah.
It's
Yes.
underspending.
when we had turnover, for example, we had a really high turnover this year. So in the time that it took us to post and fill those vacancies, those paychecks weren't being issued because there was no one sitting in those positions. So that money stayed behind and we were able to use it as a bonus.
I just like to say, I think it's always feasible to speak with the union in regards to the kinds of appropriations. I think it's always a good thing,
I
since they
understand.
represent a significant voice for the staff.
I understand, thank you for the feedback.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
What was the maximum, I guess, that was left over from unspent salaries?
This year, so it was around $516,000.
So it's close to that number. That's how you guys were able to disseminate.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect, yep.
Any additional questions from the board members? Is there a motion to approve resolution 62?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second,
Any further discussion from the board? Angie, can we have a call to roll, please?
Mr. Biederman,
Approve.
Mr. Bigsby,
Approved.
Dr. Murtada,
approved.
Reverend Robinson,
Approve.
Judge Salinas,
Approved.
and Ms. Tribble.
Approved.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
We'll move on. I think that's all, right?
That concludes our report. Thank you.
We'll move on to facilities. Committee, Curtis?
I don't think we have anything, are we gonna,
It's we have the 90-day security.
okay,
So,
is Dana gonna speak about that?
no, I thought I would just
Okay.
speak about it real quick.
All right.
So as the board has heard a few times in the past, we're continuing our transition to try to bring our security function in-house at the library.
Make sure that they can hear you on.
I'm sorry, can everybody hear me?
Can everybody hear John virtually as well?
Okay.
And I think this is
That's the-
important call.
I have a little bit of a cough. so I'm
They're
trying
all
to keep my
important,
mask
so.
on.
you know.
So we're trying to bring that security function in-house and we're doing those steadily position by position. We haven't gotten to the point yet where we're ready to completely transition away from Allied, formerly G4S. So we need to talk about, extending that timeline out a little bit. We originally sent a year timeline to the board. The board asked to revise that down to 90 days so we could discuss it in committee. And so that's what this documentation reflects, is a 90-day extension of that function.
Okay. Well, then,
We're not gonna have any interruption in services, correct? Any further questions from the board? Curtis, are you asking to approve resolution? 63?
Yes, I'm asking to approve that. But I also want to, make notice that we move in the direction that we have further discussion rather sooner than later. I know we've talked about this for quite some time, so I'm glad that we're able to get this extended. The board approved it, so we can move in that direction. Thank you.
Absolutely. It'll be on the agenda for the next facilities committee meeting,
Well,
which I think we sent out a thing. I'm not sure if we sent it out yet, but we're shooting for the 1st of December.
well, if we go 90 days, technically we have until the end, to our February meeting. Right.
That's true. I just wanted to give us plenty of time in case it took multiple conversations.
I want to make sure everyone knows that's the target date, hopefully. Is there any further questions from the board on resolution 63?
Just want to make sure that what Curtis was pointing out, the importance of the discussion and the deliberative process. Thank you, Curtis. I think that's going to be extremely important because we've been talking about this, what's happening with security, how we pay attention to issues of equity and diversity, young people, et cetera.
Absolutely.
So looking forward to that.
Thank you for that
December
catch.
1st possibility, you said?
It's not firm yet, but that's the tentative date that we're looking at.
Gotcha.
Thank you for the catch on that. Is there a motion to approve resolution 63?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second,
Any further discussion from the board on resolution 63? Hearing none. Angie, can we have a call to roll, please?
Mr. Biederman,
Approve.
Mr. Bigsby,
Approved.
Dr. Matata,
Approved.
Reverend Robinson,
Approved.
Judge Salinas,
Approved.
Ms. Tribble.
Approved.
Thank you.
I think that's all we have for facilities, correct? We'll move on to the Library Foundation update. Reverend Robinson.
Thank you, President Salinas. Every month, the Library Foundation provides an update to the Library Board. Library Foundation wrapped up its 2021 staff campaign, Going for the Goal. As of 11/22/2021, we raised $22,913.70 from 134 library staff members, library and foundation staff members. Thank you to all staff who participated, and we would like to thank the following library staff for serving on the staff campaign committee this year. Katie Bulloff, Mike Coughlin, Mike Eric, Joanne Emmert, Christopher Hogsett, Emily Lynn, Nike Olaniyi, Stacy Terrell, Terrell, and Michelle Shop. Included in your package are testimonial emails the staff campaign committee sent to all of the library staff to encourage their participation. The foundation thanks 251 donors who made gifts last month. The following are top corporate and foundation contributors. If you should have an opportunity to thank these donors, we would be grateful. College Savings Bank, the Rich Charles, Woodley Farrer, Manning Portfolio Management. And also this month, the Library Foundation is proud to provide more than $52,000 for library programs and initiatives. Examples of major initiatives supported include high school ebook collection, 100 books before graduation, simple and affordable plant-based cooking. President Salinas, that concludes my report for this evening.
Any questions or comments on the report? Thank you, Pastor Robinson. We'll move on to item 9, report of the interim CEO. John?
Thank you, Judge Salinas. So the first item under the CEO's report is the regular resolution regarding finances, personnel, and travel. There's nothing out of the ordinary here. This is standard personnel movement, basically. So if you have any questions about it, I'm happy to try to answer them, but otherwise it's pretty standard.
Do we have any questions from the board regarding resolution 64 on the finance and travel? Seeing none, is there a motion from the board to approve resolution 64?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Angie, can we have a call? Oh, any further discussion? Angie, can we have a call to roll, please?
Mr. Biederman,
Approve.
Mr. Bixby, Dr. Matata,
Approved.
Reverend Robinson,
Approved.
Judge Salinas,
Approved.
and Ms. Tribble.
Approved.
Thank you.
Resolution passes.
Okay, before I launch into the interim CEO roadmap document, I do want to make a few quick points real quickly. The first one is I want to introduce our brand new DEI officer for the library. Keisha Hughes is with us. So she's been with us 3 weeks or so, 2 weeks, maybe even. So we just want to say welcome to her and introduce her to the library board. We're very glad that she's here.
Welcome. Thank you for joining our team.
Next, our staff association president, Melinda Mulligan, was planning to be here tonight, but couldn't. So she wanted me to announce the winner of the Staff Association Spring 2021 Scholarship, which is a $1,000 scholarship to a library staff member who's an MLS in the MLS program. That's going to go to Sylvia Robertson, who's a technology learning specialist at Central Library. So congratulations to Sylvia. And just a FYI, there is going to be a fall 2021 scholarship announcement in January. Okay, moving right along. I want to say that we had a very successful Fall Fest program this past Saturday. I know, well, Dr. Payne isn't here anymore, but she was able to join us on Saturday. That was really cool. So this, if you're not familiar, this is the annual program that we do every year that features the winners of the Slam and Rhymes Poetry Contest. So it was really cool to see those young kids get recognized for their poetry. The CBLC Poet Laureate January York was there, and the keynote speaker was Sabrina Fulton, who is Trayvon Martin's mother, if you're not familiar with that name. So we had a capacity crowd of about 250 for the keynote, which we were very pleased with. And so I just want to say thank you to all the staff who put that program together. Cordia Watkins, Tony Radford, the African American History Committee, whose sponsor is Greg Hill, who's I know is in the room somewhere, and Michelle Hayes, and all the staff. There's too many to name, but all the staff who put on that program, it was really great. And I specifically want to say thank you to the Steve Talley family as supporters of the foundation through the Donna Talley Story Theater Fund. They made the event possible. So I just want to say thank you to them. Also real quickly, so we had another big event last week, very big week for us last week. We launched the Digital Encyclopedia of Indianapolis this past Thursday, which is a brand new resource. It's very exciting. If you haven't seen it, I suggest you go look at it. This is a partnership that we've been working on with the Polis Center at IUPUI to bring the old, if you're familiar with the print Encyclopedia of Indianapolis, bring it online, make it interactive, make it something that the community can suggest changes to and call for additions to. So we're very pleased to be the home of that. I thought Joe was going to bring it up for a second. So you'll get to see it. It's extremely cool. We've got a lot of positive feedback. So, you know, the idea obviously is to make all these local history materials more accessible, lower barriers for access. You don't have to come to the library anymore for some of this stuff. You can just jump online and access it easily. So I want to thank Mike Williams on our staff for helping organize the event. I want to thank Beth Van Allen, the managing editor. Alelia Bundles, our keynote speaker for the event last night, was amazing. And so next month, I'm hoping to bring you guys a full demo of this resource. You'll get to see it in action and see what it can all do, because it's really amazing. And there's a lot of fine points that I think deserve to be called out. So a lot of hard work went into this, and we're extremely proud of it. This is really cutting edge in the public library world. So we're very pleased with it.
John, we do have coasters of their
Oh,
places
yeah,
that they
thank
can
you for
take.
reminding me. So under your water bottle actually is a coaster with the Encyclopedia of Indianapolis logo and picture on it. So those are yours to keep. They're pretty cool. So thank you. That's, I think, also a Mike Williams product. So thank you, Mike. Okay, so that being said, I'll move into the interim CEO roadmap document. I introduced this document to you last month. This is kind of, you know, like I said then, reflects what I've heard as I've been going around talking to staff and hearing their concerns and hearing what they want to see change in this interim period while we search for a permanent CEO. So this is basically the exact same document, except for the red text that you see. Those are the updates. So I'll just go through real quickly. I'll only go through the CEO executive committee section, because otherwise there's a lot of inside baseball here. I'm happy to answer questions, but I'll just focus on the CEO section. So the very first bullet point under there you can see is listening efforts. So, you know, I've noted that we've been doing some town halls, and I can tell you that we've had 3 now all staff town halls, Zoom meetings where staff can pose questions anonymously, and they'll get spoken to by either me or another one of the EC members as appropriate. So we've gotten some pretty positive response to those meetings, and we'll keep doing them as long as people are interested in them. Office hours in branches, we've been moving forward with that as well. I've been doing that. I know Tisha's been doing that. I know Greg's been doing that. I know Deb Lambert is doing that. I think EJ was doing it when she was here. So that's been very popular. We've created a lot of relationships there. Okay, so the next couple, the advisory panel and the Q&A forum, were suggestions, both of which arrived before the climate process, which you heard Myra talk about just now. So to back up a little bit, the advisory panel is something that was suggested that we create to kind of form a bridge between staff and EC. It was pointed out to me as I was shopping this idea around, though, that gosh, we're creating an awful lot of groups, and if we're not careful, we're going to create so many groups that it's not clear what pathway, which questions should take, and things like that. And that might only make communication even more difficult. So I don't want to say we're decommitting from this idea necessarily, but we are kind of putting it on ice just until we understand what that Go team, how that's going to live within the organization, just so we aren't stepping on our own toes, so to speak. So directors working in branches, we're doing that too. I know, I think almost every one of the directors, I can't think of any that haven't done it at least once, or just going out into the branches and taking their laptop with them and just working from a branch to meet people and see people and seeing how things are working. Next bullet point, to your point, Dr. Matata, improving communication between the union and the administration. We had a very productive recent round of negotiations about Sunday work. I think I can speak for the administration. I think we were very pleased with how it went. I think what we heard from the union was positive as well. So we were all pleased with how that went. The tone did seem different to previous negotiation sessions, so we were happy about that. Servant leadership training, there's no update there, and that's just my inability to get to that particular bullet point, so there's more to come on that one. Focusing on the strategic plan. Here's another one where once I started shopping this idea around, I was getting some feedback that maybe I need to course correct a little bit. We had originally planned kind of a friendly competition where branches can compete with each other to achieve certain goals and meet certain metrics and things like that. What I heard was, no, exactly. We don't feel like competing with each other. We want to be a little bit more unified than that. So we're going to walk away from the competition aspect, but again, to recognize Greg and Garrett, they've come up with some other ways to measure success and to report on things like that. And you will get a fuller report on the progress of our strategic plan at the January library board meeting. That's what Garrett and I are shooting for. Okay, the EC matrix. So this is basically a gigantic spreadsheet that EC keeps a list of all open projects on. The idea was, okay, we can kind of see, well, Q3 of 2023 is shaping up to be a real tough one for IT. Maybe we better restack some things. But what we also can use it for is a bird's eye snapshot of just what's going on across the organization. And what we found was that people are interested in this and wanted it to be tailored more to that purpose instead of just a brief line and some milestones. People wanted a little bit more detail about what was going on all across the organization. So we're building on that as we transition into Office 365. We're trying to build a tool that does that more specifically, just instead of a big long spreadsheet, so it's a bit more usable for folks. But we've heard that there's a desire for that information. Quarterly reports. So this has been a long-standing kind of thorn in the side of a lot of different managers, knowing who and why they're writing these reports every single quarter. So we're retooling those. Again, Greg and Garrett are talking to folks to identify how actually we're using these. And then we're going to retool them to those purposes instead of just being kind of a rote exercise. And then last on this section's list is the cafe contract. This is more of an item for me, obviously, just something that we want to get sorted out. We know our cafe wants to formalize their relationship with us a little differently. So there's no update there either. I haven't had a chance to meet with Sue. So that's the CEO section of the interim roadmap. Like I said, I won't go through every single bullet point in this entire document, but I did want to provide the board some accountability with what we've been doing and what we've been hearing and what we've been working on. So I will be happy to answer any questions. Yes, Dr. McDonough.
Quick one. You said that the quarterly report seems to have taken on a pretty perfunctory role.
Mm-hmm.
What are you imagining it to become, and what is the team considering as important in terms of quarterly reporting? And how does that tie into the overall plan that you have for ongoing assessment and evaluation?
Excellent questions. So essentially what I've heard is the most common use of these reports was kind of informal. What managers were saying was, yeah, it's nice for me to look back and see what I've done and just kind of write it all out and process it in my mind. The stated purpose of these things way back in the day was we need to be gathering narratives for grant applications and things like that. But we almost, in my experience anyway, we almost never used them for that purpose. So what developed around them was this auxiliary purpose. So what Greg has been talking about, and I know Garrett's been talking about too, is okay, if that's the value that people are finding in these things, let's build them for that reason, to give people a way to just, contextualize their experience for the last few months and report it up the chain, and to be accountable to their manager and to their area director. So we're going to make them speak to the strategic plan, obviously, but I guess the best way I can come up with to say it is that just to give people time to sit down, step out of the hour-to-hour, day-to-day flow of the branch or department, and digest that experience and report what they're seeing.
The reason why I asked about it is because in lots of leadership work, that reflective process is invaluable. And so how it's used would be important. Love to hear more about that in regards to how we're thinking about HR, the reflective process, and the dialogue that comes as a consequence of it.
Absolutely. Any other questions I can answer for folks?
Just another quick one. It's related, but it's not that big of a deal. How are the staff responding to these office hours that are in the branches?
Well, some of them are responding very well, and I'll have a line out the door. And some of them, I'm not
Did you
sure
say
they
a
know what to do
line
with
out
me.
the door?
Some of the time. And then other branches, I'm not sure they know what to do when the CEO shows up and sits in their space for 4 hours. So, some people have a lot of things they want to talk about. Some folks, want to talk about the Colts, and that's fine too. And it's just a matter of, circumstances on the ground. So,
How has that been for you?
I've really enjoyed it. I mean, it's always nice to get out of the office, and it's nice to go back into a library, that's for sure. And, there's no end to what you can learn, about the decisions that you're making as an administrator by watching them play out in front of you and seeing how they're working and seeing how they're not working and hearing people describe why they're not working, etc. So yeah, very educational.
So that's why I was thinking about how is it tied to being in the branches for those who are doing the informal work of review and process.
Absolutely, I agree.
Any further comments or questions for John? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
John.
We'll move on to item 12. And this is at this time was made available for discussion on items not on the agenda. Or if we have any future items that the board members want us to consider, please let us know.
I have one item. One of the things that I thought was very important is the work that has been done for community engagement. And as we were thinking about the facilities and how much data was brought back from surveys and discussions and focus groups, always thinking about how do we do that work in ways that continue to grow and develop that footprint. So for example, in the newer branches now, how do we determine, not just the head count, how many people come in, but how do we pay attention to the kinds of things that are tied to the interest of the community, the collections, that kind of thing, that the community says as well. So I wanted to ask about the possibilities of a special short-term committee for the study of community engagement at some point or another. There's in the bylaws, there is an opportunity for the president to have a short term, just a short term.
Yeah, we had that for that the plan that we had. So yeah, by all means, send an email. I have no problem with that. In my world, we do a lot of evidence-based practices. I don't know how that equates to the library board, but yes, I'm open to anything that makes us better. Absolutely.
Thank you, Judge Swain.
And the sooner the better on that as well, okay? Any other comment or any other items of interest that the members want us to consider for December or the coming year? Seeing none, I want to remind everyone that our next regular monthly board meeting will be December 13th. That is earlier than normal. I think of the
Yes.
holidays play into account on that.
Yes.
All right. Does the governor's order extend or is it done?
They're only extended for 30 days, so it ends as of December 1st.
Okay. So in December, we'll be under the new law that came in, right?
I believe they're meeting actually the day after Thanksgiving with the
Okay.
state legislature, from what I read. So we may have some new guidance by
We
then.
usually monitor that towards the end of the month because that has been extended from month to month. So
Okay.
we'll be able to let you know.
All right. So I'm going to adjourn the regular monthly meeting of the library board and then move on and call to order the annual meeting of the library board. And can we have a call to roll for the annual meeting?
Yes, Mr. Biederman,
Present.
Mr. Bigsby,
Present.
Dr. Murtada,
Present.
Reverend Robinson,
Present.
Judge Salinas,
Present.
and Ms. Tribble.
Present.
We do have a quorum.
We'll move on to item 3 of the annual meeting, election of officers. The first matter on our agenda is for the election of officers pursuant to the bylaws. Our officers are elected for 1-year terms. The term of the office for each of our current officers ends December 31st, 2021. The term for these officer elections will be from January the 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2022. Election of officers is to be accomplished by nomination and roll call. We'll now commence with that process. At this time, I will call for nomination from the floor for the office of president.
I'd like to nominate my colleague to my right, President of the Board, Curtis Bigsby.
Not at this time.
Any further nominations?
Mr. President, I would like to nominate Jose Salinas as president.
I'll accept that nomination. I would have acquiesced to the first nomination. I want it clear, okay? I'll accept that nomination. Any further nominations for the office of president? Nominations are not closed. Can we have a call to roll, Angie?
Yes, Mr. Biederman,
This would be for election.
For
I-
election
I'm
of-
so-
For the election of president. I accept, by the way.
Oh.
We're doing one office at a time. First one is president.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was having a little trouble hearing. And it was, who's up? It's just Judge Salinas?
Yeah, I accepted the nomination.
Okay, then I approve.
okay, go ahead with the roll call.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Biederman,
I approve.
Mr. Bigsby,
Approve.
Dr. Murtada,
Abstain.
Reverend Robinson,
Approve.
Judge Salinas,
Approved.
and Ms. Tribble.
Approve.
Yeah, we're not, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right, we'll now move to the,
So you've been
so I've been elected for next year. We'll now move for the office of vice president. At this time, I will call for nominations from the floor for vice president.
I nominate to my right, Curtis Bigsby for Vice President.
Accept.
I accept.
Any other nominations for vice president? Hearing none, the nominations are closed. Angie, can we have a call to roll?
Mr. Biederman, Mr. Biederman,
Ray, this was for vice president. Curtis accepted.
Have an audio issue.
Joe, can you?
oh, he's got thumbs up. He's got,
Thumbs up is-
Okay.
is approved.
okay. Mr. Bigsby, Dr. Murtada,
Approved.
Reverend Robinson,
Approve.
Judge Salinas,
Approved.
and Ms. Tribble.
Approve.
Curtis Dixon is elected vice president for the year 2022.
You want to try that?
Ray, what's your vote?
Oh, I approve of Curtis.
All right, good.
Okay, good.
All right.
Yeah,
Don't move.
sorry, did you guys hear my kids yelling a whole bunch in the car?
All right, we need you for the next one. We're gonna move on to secretary. At this time, I will call for the nominations from the floor for the office of secretary.
I'm gonna make it.
Mr. Biederman, you've been nominated for secretary. Do you accept?
I accept.
Any further nominations? Nominations are closed. Angie, can we have a call to roll, please?
Mr. Biederman,
Approve.
Mr. Bigsby,
Approved.
Dr. Murtada,
Approved.
Reverend Robinson,
Approve.
and Judge Salinas.
Approved.
Thank you.
Hope.
Oh, I'm sorry. Approve.
Okay. Ray has been elected secretary for the year 2022. We'll move on to treasurer. At this time, we'll call for nominations from the floor for treasurer. Was that is she here?
I'll nominate him.
Oh, Carolyn Adams has been nominated. Do you accept the nomination? Yes. Any further nominations for the office of treasurer? Seeing none, the nominations are closed. Angie, can we have a call to roll?
Mr. Biederman,
Approve?
Mr. Bixby, Dr. Murtada. Approved. Reverend Robinson,
Approve.
Judge Salinas,
Approved.
and Ms. Tribble.
Approved.
Ms. Adams, thank you so much for accepting that. You've been elected treasurer for 2022. We'll move on to resolution 65-2021 with the bylaws. Annually, the board approves this annual resolution to approve, confirm, and/or reauthorize those matters that are addressed annually. A copy of the current bylaws is also attached. There is no proposed changes to the current form of bylaws. And as part of the annual resolution, the bylaws are being reaffirmed and approved in their current form. Do we need to add anything, John? Anything? No. Okay. Is there a motion to approve annual resolution 65-2021? Is there a
So
second?
moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on resolution 65? Seeing none, Angie, can we have a call to roll?
Mr. Biederman,
Approve?
Mr. Bixby, Dr. Murtada. Approved. Reverend Robinson,
Approve.
Judge Salinas,
Approved.
and Ms. Tribble. Approved. Motion carried.
Motion carries. Concludes our business, right? That concludes our business. I want to thank everyone for being here. The annual meeting of the Indianapolis Library Board is adjourned. Thank you, folks.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Be safe.
Hi,
guys.
everyone.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Yep, happy Thanksgiving.